In today's video, I've set ourselves a bit of a challenge. I want to get S&Box, the spiritual successor to Gary's mod, running on just 1GB of VRAM, which doesn't sound like a challenge until you remember how this game runs out of the box. Right, now this is the most powerful 1GB VRAM graphics card. There's a full video on this and we've already tweaked around Cyberpunk 2077 to work on it. But today, with all the hubbub and nonsense going on around S&Box, S&Box, whatever you want to call it, I want to see if we can make it run with just 1GB of VRAM. Now the entire point of this video today is a little bit to see if we can fix the performance of the game and to really pinpoint where it's gone wrong. Because I've only ran it once so far on an RX 550, which is a much newer card than this with 4 times the VRAM, and performance was downright terrible. So I figured, what better card to try and learn how the performance works and see if we can maybe fix it than by limiting ourselves with just 1GB of VRAM. The reason being that this card still supports modern features, Vulkan, DirectX 12, somewhat recent drivers, so it should be able to launch the game and we can see how it runs out of the box, and then we can also see if we can tweak the game down low enough, because it is a Source 2 game and it's a Source 2 engine development kit. I'm not really entirely sure, and all I'm seeing all over the internet is people saying, wow, the performance on this sucks. And to be fair, from what I've seen of it myself, performance does indeed suck. So I'm just going to whack some drivers on here, and then we'll go in game and see what performance is like out of the box, because I don't think it's going to be very good. So there's no trickery going on whatsoever. We've got the R7 370 series, modded drivers bring it up to the latest name available, so whatever this got rebranded into, but it's all right there, 1024 unified shaders, and 1024 megabytes of RAM. And we also get DirectX 12, Vulkan, all of those little bits. There's a full video on this card if you are interested in what it actually is, but long story short, we use it for VRAM challenges, because it is the last modern, powerful 1GB card. Now, I've never once tried launching it on this card, and I actually don't know if it's going to work yet. I'm really hoping it does, otherwise this video proves nothing. And the idea today is that we're going to try and get this running. We are going to try and get this playable. We've got Half-Life 2 running on 8 megabytes of VRAM. We've had Minecraft running on 8 megabytes of VRAM. We've done GTA 5 on 1/4 of a gig. We've done Cyberpunk on this exact card. So surely we can get S&Box to work. It loaded for a brief second, and it looks like it's crashed. Out of video memory. Is it still running? No. It's just straight up gone. So we get an out of memory error, but it was running at 30 FPS for a hot second there. So I'm wondering if maybe we try again. That is about all we're going to be able to get to see on this. So we know it's got problems with the latest graphics drivers. These are the latest ones we can run on here. We can't get any newer drivers. And it does launch at 30 FPS, and then we get a black screen. So Vulkan error, out of memory, VMA create buffer with alignments. Now, where does it keep its config files? What's going on in here? So we've got source 2, config, game, video.json. What have we got going on in here? Not much, to be honest. What is benchmark.exe? So launching it via the benchmark application actually gets us in-game. No, we still run out of memory. I need to find out how this game's actually configuring its configs and try and work out how to make it run, because I don't know if anyone's actually bothered at this point. But anyway, I'm going to get to work and we are going to see if we can maybe tweak this down enough that it will run on 1GB, because it looks like at the moment you can't actually get in-game longer than a couple of seconds. And it's nothing to do with the drivers, it is down to video memory. So if we can make this run on 1GB of VRAM, step 1 is going to be fixing the crashing. So I'm going to get to work and see just how low this can actually go. Now, step 1 of all of this was to try and fix the crashes, because for some reason the way that Vulkan's been implemented here, I'm assuming because of the changeover from DirectX 11 to Vulkan, which is a change this game went through in early access, the frame buffers that it requires are set incredibly high, and they seem to scale with the settings, which makes sense because you want the game to need more VRAM as you go up to higher settings, and they also scale quite heavily with resolution as well. So trying to reduce all of this down was step 1, because then it'll use less memory. The good news is there are tweaks we can make. The bad news is that S&Box will revert all of the changes we make, even if we make its config files read-only. So if it's something it's not expecting, it will just reset all of the changes you've made, meaning a lot of this was trial and error. At the end of it though, I did manage to tweak it down as low as I could get it, at least on this side, with a forced full screen 640 by 480. I did dabble around briefly with 320 by 240, but it didn't really make too much of a difference. I've also dropped down the internal resolution scaling a little bit, so really we're seeing around 360p in terms of our actual rendering resolution. There's no anti-aliasing, there's no anisotropic filtering, there's reduced textures, shadows, post-processing, volumetric fog, motion blur, virtually all the settings as low as it will go without resetting its own configurations, so much lower than the game will naturally let you go from the settings menu. And this was good enough for a proof of concept, because the game could now sit quite steadily on the dashboard and not crash. The problem is, we still couldn't go in-game, because the way that Vulkan is implemented here, it just wants to pull too much VRAM when loading in a map. It tries to do all of it at once, causing this little 1GB card to just suffer. So I had an idea. See, we can move over to Linux, which gives us a bit more control over what Vulkan is actually doing. We do also get some slightly newer drivers for the age of this card, but I don't think the drivers are really playing any problems here. So from here on the Linux side, we were able to disable most of the preloading, so when it's trying to pull in map data and preload everything at once, which stopped a great deal of the crashing. We were also able to force a defined buffer size for Vulkan, so it was slightly under the maximum 1GB we had available, meaning that it never once tried to use the full 1GB. I set it to 985 megabytes, so technically we're doing under 1GB of VRAM today. We were able to implement all of the other changes we made on Windows, but we were also able to do a few more bits and pieces. I was able to try and turn even more details down to the lowest possible level by forcing a 64 megabyte texture pool, which in turn removed a lot of the leftover detail in lighting and textures down to a level that we just weren't able to achieve over on Windows. And finally, we have done it. We had the game now not just launching, but now stable in all instances on just 1GB of VRAM. But was it all worth it? Well, I mean, you can now play the game, but I'm just going to roll the live footage because this took a long time to do, and the best way to show it off is to just show you what it plays like now. Well, it's taken the best part of half a day, and I can honestly say performance in this game makes absolutely no sense. But I have managed to get it running and working on just 1GB of VRAM. Now, it's involved a lot of modifications to the game's video files. I mean, it doesn't seem to call on a standard source configuration. It seems to sort of make it up a little bit as it goes along, and if it detects something it doesn't like, it will just reset everything completely. So a lot of it has been trial and error, seeing what source features you can call on and what ones you can then reduce before the game just decides, nope, not doing that, and will reset everything. Combined with that, we've also had to use Linux to actually get it working because the Vulkan implementation is a nightmare. Fortunately, we can actually set a hard 1GB limit here on its launch files, which does help performance and stability. This is what has stopped it crashing. We had to swap over to Linux to even begin doing this. It's running in 640 by 480, which was a nightmare to force. It is then halving the resolution again, and is then dropped a little bit lower than that. I think this is rendering somewhere above 360p, which is as low as I could get the game to go. But look at that, 60 FPS. So if we start off by just showing you what it looks like, because when I tell you it's a bit of a mess, it is a bit of a mess. It's a hard game to really show you what it's like because, from what I understand, it's meant to be more of a game engine than it is a true successor to Gary's Mod. But we can still load up into Construct, and as you can see here, if you load up into the older version of Construct, we have got it running fine. Now, this would previously crash constantly or run at about 10 FPS, 12 FPS. We still retain a lot of the nice lighting effects of Source 2, so you can still see a lot of the light streaming in, but messing around with the shadows and the level of detail causes these almost constant squiggles on the floor. Now, this is very much map dependent, but this is what we've had to do to get it running. But when it actually comes to being a successor to Gary's Mod, I suppose, you can go ahead and spawn in a load of explosives and watermelons and whatever else you want, and then you can get a hold of your RPG. This code error, can't get rid of it. It will just fade away. Probably something to do with the tweaks I've implemented, but who really knows? But look, you can explode all this, and look at that. Our frame rate was fine. Yay! The thing is, though, this is probably a best case scenario. This is the old version of Construct running with very broken graphics and runs perfectly fine. Looks hideous, but it's running. The real issue comes from when we go into something a bit more modern. So say if we load up into the new version of Construct, which is how you're meant to be playing the game. Has it died? Okay, it still can crash the entire computer sometimes. It's to do with VRAM utilization. So sometimes it does do that, but we'll get back in game and then we'll carry on. Now, for some reason, this will happen for a hot minute or so, but still, this is a step better than it was with the game crashing. Eventually, it will calm down and our frame rate will triple. And by triple, I mean it goes from about 4 FPS up to around, say, 15, which is quite the improvement, but it's not the 60 FPS we were getting before. I don't know why this happens in particular. It does look okay. We don't have the same issues with the floor developing lots of squiggly textures. I mean, we still have issues with the shadows and the level of detail not loading in quite properly, but hey, if they do, the game crashes, so this is a step above where we were. It's just, it takes on a very odd look, because it's not often you get to see, well, so many nice looking effects paired with such a terrible frame rate, and then such questionable textures and effects also going on at the same time. But it is working. I mean, when we look at the ground, our frame rate does go up to about 20 FPS, which is nice. And it is mostly the maps causing it, because as you can see, our frame rate doesn't really change. If we spawn in a load of bits, our frame rate's fine. There's not really all too many problems. I mean, we can try exploding them and see if the frame rate goes anywhere, but no. See, the frame rate is generally pretty solid. The effects look okay from a distance. It's such an odd experience that we had to do all of this to stop it crashing. It is worth noting, though, that the explosions do apparently break the viewport, I'm guessing, because this exploded texture sort of follows the camera now. Once again, hey, it's better than the game crashing. I've done my best. I've spent half a day on this. So when it comes to the new version of Construct, it's fine if you don't mind a 15 to 20 FPS experience. I mean, I remember people playing Gary's mod like this. You still have the option to go back to the old version of Construct and get 60 FPS on this hardware, admittedly with these settings, but there's something going on with the maps which is causing this, well, just complete anomaly. The thing is, though, it does lead to some rather interesting effects when you go into some of the more detailed maps. There was a version of Office I found, a remake of Office. I mean, if anyone's got any ideas on performance, please do let me know, but it's such a weird one because all of this to try and get a playable frame rate. And I understand why it's map dependent. Some of the maps do actually look very nice. But at the same time, it's almost like it's a hard-coded limit on how they're going to perform, which is why you've got people with RTX 3070s and 3080s and 5090s all complaining about performance. For those of us on 1GB, this is what you're getting. So here we have the remake of Office. And I'm not too sure this fog is meant to be here, but I've not played enough of S&Box or S&Box to really know, so this could probably be an effect I've broken. I'll have to bring up some footage after this and actually double check what it's meant to look like, but it certainly brings on a very interesting aesthetic. Once you get inside and start moving, the graininess of what we've done to the game actually does become quite cool looking, especially when you start getting into these areas here, and I don't know how best to describe it. It's such an odd looking experience, but once again, it all functions fine, but it still runs at almost a hard-coded 15 or so FPS. And I have no clue what else we can do about it. I've pretty much got rid of absolutely everything we can. Most shadows are gone, most lighting effects are completely removed, most levels of details are completely destroyed. You know, everything I can do to tweak this game down has been done. And you just end up with a weird 15 FPS glitchy experience that no longer crashes, but I wish I could explain it because I certainly can't. I mean, it looks kinda cool, I kinda like it, but with a game like this, there we go, there's some physics things. So you can play it, you can control it, you can move bits around. It's a really tricky one for me to say because this here doesn't look like an effect that's meant to be here. This looks like the lighting has just completely broken. But then again, I've not really played this game. And yeah, you can mess around with it. It does work. I mean, you can spawn a few bits in. I mean, what if we go to a dark area and then we spawn in some lighting? We can see what the lighting effects look like now. That's a really good way of showing off how the lighting is completely broken. So if we carry this around with us, this is actually a good example. You can see I've managed to reduce the lighting quality to the stage where it takes on this unique aesthetic, would be the best way of describing it. And even then, with it trying to do this in real time, we're running at 4-ish FPS, in and around. As you can see, I don't really know what else to say because it's not like I've made the game playable. I wonder if there's anything else hidden in here that is going to run okay? It's a tricky one because we have been successful a little bit, haven't we? We can load into games and it doesn't crash. We can load into simpler maps and get 60 FPS, but the whole point of loading into the newer, more advanced stuff, well, we get like 15 frames per second, admittedly on a 1GB graphics card, so this is really a worst case scenario. This thing is old. It plays Counter-Strike 2 fine. It would probably launch Half-Life Alyx. So I've loaded into what I can only assume is someone's modern interpretation of Flatgrass, and it is still running at about 15 FPS. It seems to be mostly the dynamic lighting that is completely broken. I mean, once again, this is the only way we're able to get it running. So I suppose, what if we try and spawn in something someone's made? If we go to dupes, our frame rate doesn't really change too much from assets. We can spawn in a load of these guys, and we can probably blow them up as well, and it'll probably survive? So let's have a little test of our frame rate here, see what happens when we blow up a load of melons. Okay, it does bring it down to around 9 FPS, but to be fair, comparing that to how it just is not the worst thing in the world, because it's dealing with it fine. It's not so much the assets in the game, I don't think, as much as it is just the maps and something else going on with the engine. It's ridiculous. We've literally got Cyberpunk running on this amount of VRAM on this exact card. Who would have thought it'd be the successor to Gary's mod, where we get it down to possibly the ugliest anyone's ever seen it. We go, you know what? I think that's about the best we're going to be able to do. Well, there you have it. S&Box, S&Box, however you want to call it. Completely broken, but running on 1GB of VRAM, and that's the best we've been able to do. So, I hope you got something out of this, because I feel like I got a wasted morning. But at least it runs now, which is something it didn't do before. So there we have it, S&Box, S&Box, however you actually want to call it, running on 1GB of VRAM. And running is probably the term I'm going to use here, because yes, in certain instances it is playable. For example, if you're in older or simpler maps, or even some of the newer low poly ones that I found on the community workshop, then yeah, it does run, and it does run somewhat okay. It looks downright awful and there are errors, but hey, we've gone from this game launching and then crashing instantly to actually being a relatively stable experience. We'll ignore the fact that it did actually turn off my entire computer once, but we are trying to force quite a modern game down onto 1GB of VRAM. I'm sure that optimizations will occur over time, but it's just such a weird implementation of the Source engine that a lot of the tweaks and fixes that have worked over the years in Source and Source 2 just don't apply here. The engine isn't happy and it will quickly reset them. I'm sure there's more work that can be done to actually go ahead and try and make this more playable, but my main goal today was get it running on 1GB of VRAM, and we've been able to do it. Performance seems largely dependent on the maps you're running, where it's not so much a dynamic variable that can change. It is just, you've downloaded this map and that's how it's going to run. It comes with these textures and these assets, and that's the performance you're going to get. When it comes to simpler maps, well, because we've tweaked all of the props and all the dynamic aspects, as you can see with the lighting and the props, well, the performance doesn't really change and maintains its playability. So, I suppose for simpler instances and games, yes, this now works. But for the bulk of what you probably want to play on here, which is modern-looking Source 2 maps and bits and pieces like that, well, the performance hits a hard line, and you're just not going to be able to get more performance than this, at least on these quite old 1GB cards. So I hope you've all enjoyed this video. It's just one that I was curious about, to be honest, to see if we could actually do it. It's probably the least exciting one we've done because, yes, it looks horrifically broken, but not in a way that's sort of fun. It's just broken lighting and broken fog and broken viewports. But hey, we had to do it to get it running. So I hope you all enjoyed watching. I hope you found it at least a little bit interesting. So thank you all for watching, and good night.